Well, would you look at that? We got more teasers and more reveals, and this time it came out of a living legend. Legends of Runeterra, that is. Yup, in case you thought this game is somewhere in a hidden corner, which it might be there for some people, but to others, this digital card game that is being turned into a PvE crawler is still kicking. And this time, not only did we get an update, which the fans of this game are excited about, but it was also confirmed that Legends of Runeterra and Riftbound will be synergizing together. This on its own sounds cool, but as you'll see, with enough crazy people thinking, we will also figure out the Season 3 of League of Legends. That's the one season that is supposed to be special and standalone. Well now, it is pretty obvious what's gonna happen. And so, let's dive into all the new information. Most of this came out from the March update for Legends of Runeterra. Here, Eric and Brian came in ready for snacks, because that's how they usually do updates, but this was a proper dev talk. Now, as many of you may know, over the last few years at this point, Legends of Runeterra had to cut back on the PvP for two reasons. First of all, PvP is much harder to maintain and more expensive to keep up in a live service game. But also, it simply wasn't as popular as Path of Champions when it came out. And so slowly, most of the audience of this card game went into the PvE game mode. That is why, from every single possible point of view, it made more sense to cut back on the PvP that is more expensive and less popular. And so even though some people will not like this decision, I still believe Riot made the right one. And so, among the news, we got a reveal for a new champion that is exclusive to the PvE. And it happens to be Nunu. But what is that? Original art, new cards, and a level up animation? Well, it turns out that Nunu has quite a bit of story behind him. Design-wise, since we are talking about a PvE champion, the design could be crazy. And so with all the freedom in the world, they turned Nunu into a snowballing champion, of course. So your snowballs start as small units, but through all the PvE progressions, they get big. And yes, of course, Yetis are also included in this deck. Now, what is cool is that this Nunu was actually commissioned by Legends of Runeterra back before the big reform. Meaning that Nunu actually comes in with brand new art and most importantly also a really cool level up animation. It is truly as if we got a good old classic champion for Legends of Runeterra. Also, because this was a proper commission, Nunu also comes in with his own support cards. And in this game, new cards always mean new lore. And so even though there won't be that much, we will still get a new Blizzard card. There is the new Freljordian Lorekeeper. There is also the Abyssal Yeti, which is definitely a reference to some of the Yetis getting corrupted by the Void. After which there's also the Dark Ice Apparition. Of course, this is likely a reference to Lysandra freezing the Iceborn in an ice block and preserving their dreams to feed them to the Watchers. Meaning that here we can likely see Nunu seeing a nightmare, with the nightmare likely being his mom. Then there is also the No-Tai Puppeteer, referencing Nunu's tribe. There is also a Snow Barrage, and a Snow Nu and Bolump. Snowman versions of themselves. And lastly, there is also the Spring Thaw Yeti. So yes, be ready for some really cool lore references around Nunu. Now, as Nunu arrives, they will also come in with a new adventure that actually stitched together 3 entire maps, with the story being all about chasing Zoe and the Poro King. That is why you end up at the Peak of Targon. And yes, it was confirmed that this will include some custom bosses, and it is intended as a proper endgame. Which is why you can tackle this adventure with every single Path of Champions champion. Though this also means that some people should be ready to fail this challenge a lot, especially at the beginning, because it is a roguelike. And for all the roguelike lovers, there is also a new mode called Defiance. This is a mode where you can make up your own challenge by either nerfing yourselves or buffing the enemy. Think of the classic pushing of ascensions in any roguelike really. And since this feature is here mostly for fun, it shouldn't have any important rewards. But after this, we get to the most important news. They tease that while the patches will be rolling out as usual, they will also be getting slightly lighter because Legends of Runeterra is getting ready for something big that arrives later. It was then confirmed that ever since Riftbound came out, the two teams talked a lot and they tried to figure out how the two could collaborate. I mean, Riftbound took every single piece of art from Legends of Runeterra. Well, now the good news is that this kind of support can go both ways. And as Riftbound commissions their own art, of course, Legends of Runeterra can use that. Now in this video they didn't exactly state any of this. What they said is that the team will take their time to make sure that the collaborations with Riftbound will be good, and that these collaborations will benefit Legends of Runeterra even if you don't plan on playing Riftbound. After which it was mentioned that the Legends of Runeterra will take some time to onboard new devs. Yes, you heard it right, there will be more devs on Legends of Runeterra, so the game is growing. Though that might be only temporarily. Because they mentioned that Riftbound will be learning from the Legends of Runeterra designs during that time, so it is possible that the devs are there just for the collaboration. So truth be told, we don't really know what that means. What it does mean is that after this mix-up happens, there will be some quality of life improvements for PvP. Those are their words, they mentioned PvP. Also, we already saw some glimpses of former Legends of Runeterra veteran devs now getting onto Riftbound. So all these devs are really just making circles around card games. But for the most part, that is kinda it for the updates. And that is where, ladies and gentlemen, we have to go into the crazy people thinking. You see, about a week before Legends of Runeterra got this update, Riftbound started their own teasing season. And they started teasing the upcoming set called Vendetta, as well as the set that should arrive towards the end of the year. Now, to be fair, Riftbound itself revealed some really cool things. On top of just revealing a bunch of new champions, they confirmed a new chase card thing. There will now be joined art that people will really go after. There will also be new bundles so that people can get into the game easier with a friend. Lee Sin is getting centered, literally. But most importantly, towards the end of their presentation, we also got a teaser for Set 5, Radiance. And looking at the timeline, when this set comes out, it's gonna be during the time that Riftbound will be collaborating with Legends of Runeterra. The thing is, Radiance is supposed to come out during the end of October, with the end of October and the beginning of November always being reserved for one thing: Worlds getting hyped. And more importantly, that's also when we will get the Season 3 for League of Legends. The one season which should be based on an alternative universe. And what do we have on the cover of Radiance? Seraphine and Evelyn. Now, considering the fact that these three games all plan something special around the time we get Worlds, with this having something to do with an alternative universe, which should also include Seraphine and Evelyn, one could start wondering what's gonna be the next KDA song. Yep, if you have a look at everything that's happening, it is kinda likely that we are getting a new KDA season for League of Legends and every other game. This should also mean that with Evelyn and Seraphine becoming champions in Riftbound, just like how during Spirit Forged we got overnumbered cards which had the Spirit Blossom art, it seems like Evelyn and Seraphine might be getting KDA overnumbered. None of this is confirmed, but having a look at how Riftbound does things, it's likely that might happen. Then, linking all of this into Legends of Runeterra, well, they already have a lot of KDA assets, so it is possible that there might be a big return to the store. But on top of that, since Legends of Runeterra and Riftbound will be collaborating, if Riftbound gets new art for the overnumbered cards, then Legends of Runeterra can get it as well, which means all the champions in Legends of Runeterra that don't have KDA art might just get some. Now, truth be told, every time KDA was around, it was a hit. Sure, the last time they arrived in League of Legends, Seraphine had an event, and that was something. But when it comes to the music and the performances, it was always pretty good. One minor exception. And so it makes sense that Riot would wanna push out one more hit from KDA right before the big update for League of Legends. And just in case you doubted this theory of KDA having a comeback, well, if we go back to Paris Open and we have a look at the timeline for TFT, you might see that in winter of 2026, the musical set makes a comeback. So truth be told, every Riot game is now heading towards KDA. We can only assume 2XKO is gonna be there too. Now, of course, if you really snoop around the internet, you might also find some unconfirmed leaks. And as of right now, everything is really just he said, she said, so nothing is confirmed. But if even the shady corners of the internet converge on one point, it likely might be true. And so, there you have it. We got some news that started with Legends of Runeterra, it started drifting towards Riftbound, and somehow we ended up with KDA being in every Riot game we have. And again, it makes sense because KDA is one of Riot's biggest musical successes. Which begs one question. If KDA are making a comeback, Yorick better have a hat in the next pentakill.